Hi, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition. I'm John Arezzi.
Weighing 225 pounds, John Anthony.
Looks like the road's getting a little hot now. Then he's scooped up by the tree.
How you doing, wrestling fans, and welcome to Pro Wrestling Spotlight Rewind, the only wrestling podcast that brings you back to the early days of Inside Pro Wrestling Talk, covering the history of our groundbreaking radio show, which aired from 1989 to 1995. Each week, this program reviews a different show from that era, giving you a look back at all the breaking news stories with the guests that made the news, and what was the beginning of an era where talking about the inside of the business later became part of the business. On this episode, we will review show number 4 of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, which aired originally on 1440 WNYG in Babylon, New York on April the 30th, 1989. This show marked the very first 2-hour broadcast of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. It featured our first notable in-studio guest, NWA ring announcer Gary Michael Cappetta, who will be joining us right here on today's show. We also have the very first appearance by Broadway Sonny Blaze, who will also join us on this episode. It's a packed show with lots of first guest stars and debuting sponsors like LNS Comics, who were with us for the entire run of this show. This was their first advertisement today on Pro Wrestling Spotlight from April 30th, 1989. So get ready for a great show today. But first, I want to tell you that you can support this show by going to our Patreon account. $5 a month will get you the entire radio archives of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, including the early release of the show. This show always goes to patrons first. We release it to the general public 5 days later. You get the early edition of the video podcast as well. And check out the new tiers on our Patreon account. We now have over 500 audio posts of historic content on the Patreon account, close to 150 different video posts, 250 vintage photos. We have those wonderful 8mm films that I shot at Madison Square Garden in the early 70s, and much more. Our all access tier is just $15 a month, and that gives you access to all that I just spoke about. And if you join a higher tier, you get to appear on this program as well. So go to patreon.com/John Arezzi for more information. Let's bring on our co-host, producer, creative director, Marsh, coming to you direct from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Hey-o.
I'm going to try to say it like you today. Hey-o.
Yeah, it's low energy.
It is. Well, you had a very interesting Zoom with Wally Backman of the 86 Mets about an hour and a half ago. So we're all recovering from that.
Yeah, that was funny. It's going to be a fun ride. It's going to be good.
Yeah, we're launching Soundville, a company I'm affiliated with. We're launching a show with Wally Backman from the 86 Mets, and what a ride it's been.
I'm excited. And I'm excited for this episode. I was really I know we talked last week about certain things you're going to try and put in. We're going to revisit the Bruno interview, and I'm listening to this 2-hour show and I'm getting annoyed because I'm like, there's too much here.
I know.
This is a lot of really good stuff that I ended up with so many clips. I was getting frustrated with myself, and there's so much I cut out. This is one where you want to be on Patreon. This is a lot.
Yeah, I mean, when I was listening back, and it took me a couple days because it was a 2-hour show, and you get other things going on. But when I heard Larry Zabisco, talking about Bruno, and then Larry Zabisco talking about David Sammartino, and you hear the Johnny V's, and you hear the Power Twins, and they're disparaging people with vision impairment. I mean, there was just so much going on this episode that it really needed to be a 2 or 3-parter, but we're not going to do that. If you want the entire episode from the beginning to end with everything unedited, you got to go to patreon.com, and we'll be posting that at the same time that we post this for everybody out there. So, Marsh, I think it's going to be an exciting one. And then we also have Broadway Sonny Blaze coming on later today. And this is his very first appearance on Pro Wrestling Spotlight. So it will be jam packed today.
His first appearance, but notably not the first time you've mentioned him, but it is the first time we hear the name Broadway Sonny Blaze.
It is, because
But
the last 3
he's
weeks we
been
talked about Al Schaefer.
in studio for three weeks in a row. You had him in studio and you never gave him the mic. He never talked once. And then finally he shows up. So it's time.
Well, that's because Mark Tenla was in there, and the Power Twins, and it was Chaos and Cobra, whoever that was, and yeah. So it was a zoo. So anyway, we were going to welcome our dear friend Broadway Sonny Blaze on this program in just a bit. But I'll tell you what we're going to do, Marsh. I'm going to introduce Gary Michael Cappetta. So I'm going to do a little tribute of him, and then we're going to bring Gary on with us. So our first guest, for years, he was known as the world's most dangerous announcer, a moniker given to him by Jim Cornette. He was a ring announcer for the WWF and WWF from 1974 to 1985. He was also the guy that, when I stepped into the ring for those 2 classic matches that will live in the infamy of pro wrestling, he was the ring announcer for both of those. He later served as ring announcer for AWA, NWA, and WCW. He worked with Ring of Honor as a backstage interviewer, and he also appeared in 2020 for AEW Wrestling. He's an author, a widely popular memoir, Body Slams, Memoirs of a Wrestling Pitchman. He's a member of both the NWA Mid-South Hall of Fame and the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame as well. He's a New Jersey native, and he's celebrating his 50th anniversary in pro wrestling. It is our distinct pleasure to bring on Gary Michael Cappetta.
Hi there.
Hey, Gary.
I just popped up out of nowhere. Isn't that amazing?
You did. What a magician.
What are the odds?
The sleight of hand.
I was just doing some math here. So this episode that we're talking about today, it's 35 years ago?
35 years ago. Yes,
is that possible?
April 30th.
Wow. Okay.
See, I was a pack rat, Gary. I was a pack rat. I mean, every one of the radio shows that I did, even from college, from the mid-'70s, I did Pro Wrestling Spotlight in college. I saved all the tapes on cassette. I saved every episode. So with the wonder of digitization, I digitized everything. I mean, I saved all my 8mm films from Madison Square Garden, Andre the Giant's debut at the Garden. I have the only known footage of that. So I was a pack rat. I saved everything. So we're going back.
In 2024, we would call you a hoarder. Right, there's a reality show.
I only hoarded wrestling, but I only hoarded wrestling stuff, Gary.
Well, that's okay. I mean,
he was a collector.
I was just being Mr. 2024. You know, like I need to maintain that. You know, some youthful side of me. So, I mean, if I'm celebrating my 50th year in pro wrestling, geez, how old must I be? It's like amazing.
Yeah.
I'm here and happy to be here just to let the fans know that I am still alive.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
That's it.
It's wonderful to see you. No, sometimes... I remember you as a kid. Like I actually, I really started in wrestling because I started Blassie's fan club in '72. So that was kind of my entree, and I was a ringside photographer by '75. At the Garden, sitting next to George Napolitano and Bill Apter and Frankie Amato. And so I go back, I know what that age process is, man. It's like, and you can't believe that you're at this age, at this time, you were just a kid years ago getting into this whole thing, right?
Yeah, but it'll be more remarkable when the three of us reunite in 35 years. That will be great.
Yeah,
I'll
that
be
would
here.
be a miracle for me.
Mark it down.
All right, in 35 years, we'll do the 70th anniversary of the show. And we'll have some fun with that for sure.
The 70th reunion.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Gary, let me ask you a question. When did you first fall in love with pro wrestling?
I was in sixth grade, and it was late at night, and I had nothing to do, and obviously I was only like 11 years old, and I was just spinning the dials on TV, and I ran into these wacky people, and the first time that I saw it, I thought it was like I shouldn't be watching it. It looked like X-rated to me. So I sort of hid the fact that I was watching these sweaty men rolling around in this darkened area that was just lit up and some people that kind of looked normal, the people that were around that were watching, but everybody that was inside, they just looked crazy. I just thought it was like an erotic kind of exhibition of some sort. So it was like, I shouldn't be watching this. And so whenever you tell a kid, no, you shouldn't be watching it, hell, I was there every week just to watch. That's how I found.
Do you remember
pro wrestling.
anyone in those early days and those first few times you watched it? Who stood out to you?
Oh, sure, Bruno. Bruno talked to me. He talked to me every week, and he told me that he needed me to be at the arena that weekend, because if I wasn't there, if Gary Cappetta was not at the arena, he had the possibility of losing his title. So I couldn't let that happen. So eventually I got mom and dad to start. They wouldn't take me, but they would drop me off. Maybe they would hope I wouldn't come home. I don't know, but like they wouldn't go. My parents didn't think this was such a wonderful. Not only didn't they think it was a wonderful thing for their kid to do, they didn't even think when I started to announce that this was something that they wanted on their child's resume. It wasn't until I was on TV and people started recognizing me, then all of a sudden my parents thought that, oh, okay, well this might work out. But anyway, that was more than you asked for. Yeah,
no, that was cool. I mean, did you go to Wildwood, because you were in Jersey, right? Did you go to Asbury Park Convention Center? Where did you actually go see your first live show?
Summer was when I first went to see them. That was in North Jersey at the Armories, at Elizabeth Armory, Patterson Armory, Newark Armory. Yeah, So that I would go with a cousin. He and I would be dropped off at one of the shows, and that's what I would do.
Yeah, I don't think you had the age restriction like there was in New York, where I couldn't go to a live show until I was 14 in New York City, because that was the restriction. You couldn't be. And in 1967, I tried to go to a show with my dad, and I was 10 years old in 67. And we bought tickets and we couldn't get in. It was Bruno against Gorilla Monsoon in the main event at the old Madison Square Garden. And my dad had a crying 10-year-old in the car driving back to Long Island. And he was like, what a waste of time.
Yeah.
And I did take my dad to one match
first time that I went.
in 1972. Okay.
The very first time that I went, a lady that worked for my dad was a fan and brought me. And then that was like in the summer, and that was in Asbury Park at the convention hall. But then after that, it was up in North Jersey where I lived in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my dad was not into it, and I took him to one show, and it was in early 72, was Pedro Morales. I think it was actually Bruno Sammartino was there against Smasher Sloan, and it was Pedro Morales against either Baron Cicluna or King Curtis. And I took my dad to the show, and he fell asleep during it. So that was the only time. Anyway, anyway, I want to bring Marsh on. We got a lot of cool stuff to reminisce about from 35 years ago, if we both remember it. And if you don't remember stuff, Gary, I understand it, because I don't remember this stuff. I listen to these shows and I'm like, that popped into my head. I remember it now. So Marsh, take it away, man.
It's always fun for me to play you something and have you just go like, I don't know what I was talking about. I don't know why I had a bad day. But here we are. Let's start with something simple. This is the intro. And I thought you did a really cool thing. And I wish you would, like, the way you did the promos where you always had them announce that you're listening to Pro Wrestling Spotlight. I wish that you had maintained this on more episodes, but you actually had Gary introduce you on to this show. And I thought it was really cool. So here it is.
Greetings, wrestling fans. This is NWA ring announcer Gary Michael Cappetta welcoming you to WNYG Radio's Pro Wrestling Spotlight. And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Mr. John Anthony. Hello there, wrestling fans. Welcome to another edition of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. And thank you for that great intro, Mr. Cappetta. You're very welcome, Mr. Anthony. And as you can tell, we do have a special guest in the studio, Gary Michael Cappetta. I don't think you use Michael anymore, though, do you?
Oh, sometimes. Depends on my mood.
All righty, and he's the illustrious WA. We're going to be speaking to Gary about the big pay-per-view show taking place next Sunday. The NWA's having a tremendous show. Also, we have a star-studded lineup for tonight. As I promised from last week, we are going to be celebrating the victory. Yes, we were victorious the other night in Amityville. The Power Twins, yours truly, John Anthony, making his managerial debut. Boys had a rough time. I'd say I did, but those guys did. David from the Power Twins is here. His brother Larry's now celebrating down in Florida, so he couldn't be with us tonight. But also live, coming up later on in the program, you'll be able to speak to Larry Zbyszko, the AWA heavyweight champion. Also, Johnny Valiant, the luscious one, who just recently signed on with the AWA. And luscious Johnny will be appearing here as well. We have an independent report from Don Liable from upstate New York, talking about some of the independents. We'll have a trivia contest. You can call in at 661-1440 and answer some trivia questions. We have the G-Man sitting here as usual. He's going to help us out with the phone calls with Zbyszko and Valiant, and also Marty how do you spell your name? Marty Pereira. Yes, it's a tongue twister, but Marty is here to give us a Madison Square Garden report from last week. And we're going to be back with the Pro Wrestling Spotlight and do all of this. And first guest is going to be Gary Michael Cappetta, right after this.
This is Paul T. Dangerously, and I personally am taping, therefore you obviously are listening to the Wrestling Spotlight on 1440 WNYG.
There you go. That was a very cool intro.
It sounded like we were a constant team.
It sounded like what, Gary?
I said we sounded like a regular team.
We do. Like, there was a good synergy between us.
Yeah, there was. You would think that we rehearsed that, or that we did it regularly every week, and it wasn't like that at all.
Yeah, it was kind of
just
cool.
Whatever felt good. But at the time.
There is a spoiler alert on this, Marsh. Yes, but you were talking about this is something maybe you should have done like ongoingly, right?
Yeah.
And we actually did, like every week for like 6 months. That was the intro that we used.
That's fantastic. Okay, good. Perfect. I'm excited about that. Cause I like when they do that. And was it like Sam Roberts nowadays? He has, Finkel from before he passed announcing him. I just think it's really cool.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. It did sound, Gary, like we had a synergy between us. And I appreciate you saying that because it was comfortable. And I was so happy to have you there.
Yeah. I mean,
did it happen to ring any bells yet?
We were a morning radio team.
It was just cool because you were in there for the entire episode, and so. But didn't you mention, John? This might have been the only time he came in studio.
It was the only time he came in studio. during the run of the show.
So let's play this clip. This is
you would think that I would at least remember the drive.
Hey, I was thinking you had to be in town for something specific.
Well, he lived in Jersey too, so it wasn't a far.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a drive I would have, wanted to do, but
especially with the pay rate at the time,
exactly.
Zero. We had a big budget.
You know what you didn't cover, John? Do you remember how you met Gary to get him to come in for this?
Yeah, I saw Gary at
a
house show, an NWA house show. And we reacquainted because I was like, you were the ring announcer, and I knew you from the 70s. And I was like, you were the ring announcer when I wrestled, and so we knew each other from back when I was covering wrestling at the Philadelphia Arena. Every 3 weeks, I'd be there. So that was that.
Yeah, they were all. I mean, George Napolitano, Bill Apter, Paul Heyman, John Arezzi, Georgian Napolitano. I mean, there were certain people that were all the time.
Yeah,
that's cool. And so obviously you just said, "Hey, come on down." He said, "All right, one time."
That's
so
it.
This is he was like, "I'm not driving that again, but once." But this is, you go ahead and you interview him as your first guest. This is your interview with Gary, at least a chunk of it.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
And let me introduce my guest, my co-host for today, Gary Cappetta, the illustrious ring announcer for the NWA. Gary, welcome to the Pro Wrestling Spotlight.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
How did you get involved in the ring announcing business?
Well, when I was in college, I started writing for a pro wrestling magazine, ring wrestling magazine.
Was that the time Nat LeBay ran the magazine?
That's right. And the initial reason was because I couldn't afford to go to the matches when I got into college and started paying for college. So I decided there must be a way that I can get in for free. So I went up and I spoke to Nat, and somehow or another, he gave me a press pass, allowed me to go into the matches. 2 months later, I had written just a couple of articles, one on women midgets and, Dick Worley, the ring announcer, things that everyone was just dying to hear about. And I was down in Wildwood at the announcer's table, the press table, and Willie Gilzenberg, president of the World Wrestling Federation, actually the Worldwide Wrestling Federation at the time.
Sure.
Back in 1974 was there. They didn't have a ring announcer, asked me if I would use the mic from the floor, and I said sure. I did. And they asked me if I had any experience. Now, John, what do you think I told them?
Loads.
Absolutely.
Loads of experience.
You have no idea. From nursery school through first grade, I was just the number one ring announcer in grammar school. So I said, sure, of course I do. They said, well, come next week, wear a tie, get in the ring, and you can start announcing for us. And I did that in Wildwood every week. And then at the time, Gorilla Monsoon had started promoting matches in New Jersey, and he called me up in the fall and asked me to continue. So I started with
him for 2 years, and I worked on the road. We were doing, believe it or not,
local shows where there were 3 to 4 a week just in the state of New Jersey. And
3 to 4 a week?
A week, and that was World Wrestling Federation shows before the World Wrestling Federation went national. Buddy Wagner was the ring announcer on Championship Wrestling. He became ill. They asked me to come into Philadelphia, and I started doing the television show.
Well, matter of fact, I remember you when I was wrestling, and you were the ring announcer.
I remember also.
Here he is from Boston, John Anthony.
You had it, that's right.
Of course, I never won a match, though.
Well, I
think that was partially your fault. You intimidated me.
Was that it? I don't know. I doubt it very seriously. If you would name some of your opponents, we would have a better idea as to why you didn't win.
Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The late Peter Maivia.
Right.
Chief J. Strongbow.
Well, heavy-duty competition.
I was scheduled to wrestle Backlund one night, but they saw how I was getting my tail whipped, and they said, well, we better put in someone a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happened.
Well, I'm sure that makes you a better wrestling broadcaster because you have a respect for both sides of the industry.
And... I respect both sides of the industry, but I would never step into the ring again as far as actively wrestling. Now I just let my boys, the Power Twins, look at him. David is sitting here, and he's looking pretty vicious today.
Mm-hmm.
Still celebrating from that. Are you hungover, by the way, David?
Just a tad.
You should have been there the other night. If you weren't there, you missed a spectacular program.
I had the pleasure of working with the Power Twins last year. It was the first opportunity that I had to introduce the team that you had the insight to...
Oh, yeah, I scouted these guys for a long time. We had videotapes sent from Canada, and we were watching them, and I said, these boys are destined for greatness. So I spoke to Mark Tenlett. Mark put him on the program, and the rest is history. I just kind of enjoyed the other night outside the ring when the Cheetah Kid fell outside the ring. I just kind of wiped my sweat on him like Johnny Valiant used to do. I picked that up from him, and that was pretty exciting.
You know, your tag team has one advantage that 99% of the other tag teams don't have, and that is... Now, I'm not saying that your team does this, but they would have the advantage of confusing the referee since they are twins.
Totally identical twins.
So you're agreeing to the fact that that could happen at some time?
At any given time during a match.
Oh, okay.
All you do is get a little distraction happening, and a little switcher takes place.
I wasn't tuned into your philosophy, but I know that can happen.
I'm trying to, as far as my managerial stuff, I'm trying to take a little bit from the captain, Lou Albano, a little bit from Fred Blassie. I'm going to start filing my teeth and gnawing on my my protege's opponents' heads. Probably the next show that we do, May 20th, I think it is. Right, David?
In Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn, yeah. So that should be an exciting show. We'll have the promoter for that show down here next week.
That's gold, Jerry.
He just told him straight up. He goes, I would never say it, but it sounds like they could cheat. Oh, yeah, they do that.
That's fun, right, Gary? What memories, I tell you. It's crazy stuff.
But I thought it was really fascinating, too, the longevity you had with the WWE. I also thought it was really funny that just hearing you guys saying, Worldwide Wrestling Federation at the time, because nowadays we hear that all the time about WWF at the time. Like, it's just funny to hear that lingo still be used.
Yeah, very much so. Very cool.
Yeah.
What else you got there, Marsh?
Oh, well, let's see. You guys tried to get someone on the phone, and it was just a technical wonderment of WNYG.
I think I know what you're about to play. Yeah, that was not one of our highlights. But now it's a highlight 35 years later. I love this shit.
Tax season may have passed for this year, but it's never too soon to start planning for next year. Let Ken Geller and Company, the financial, accounting, tax, and pension specialist, help you. Located at 420 Jericho Turnpike in Jericho, Ken Geller and Company offers investment counseling, tax, and full accounting services to individuals, small businesses, and major corporations. Ken Geller and Company has a full staff of experts at your disposal, and for them, no business is too small and no tax problem is too large. Call today for a free consultation, 822-8376. That's 822-8376. And let them help you feel comfortable and at ease with your financial situation. Office hours are Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., so don't struggle by yourself. Come into 420 Jericho Turnpike in Jericho or call 822-8376. 822-8376 and get help from the best. Ken Geller and Company.
We're back with the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, and before we get on with the Madison Square Garden report, we have a call, and we'll take that right now. It's 661-1440, the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. You're on the air.
Hi, this is Nick from Massapequa.
Hey, Nick, how you doing?
Not bad, John. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Good, glad to hear it. I'd like to ask Gary a couple questions.
Sure.
How you doing, Gary?
Hold on, let me get back, because we had someone else at the mic.
Shit, no. Okay. Anyway.
We'll all sit up. Go ahead.
All right. I just wanted to ask about since I had to miss the Friday night show with Mark Tendler at Amityville High School. I was wondering when Tendler is putting on another one.
Well, Mark is. How about that? How's that? Are you there, Nick?
I can't hear a thing.
All right, I'm going to put you on hold. We're going to try back in a little bit. Just hold on, Nick. All right?
Sure.
Huh? What about it?
Is it getting on too?
Let's try line 2 to see if we have any better luck with that one. Pro Wrestling Spotlight?
Hello.
Yes.
I'd like to speak to Dave Powell.
That's Larry.
Hold on a second.
His brother on the line.
No. We're having a lot of technical difficulties over here. I'm sorry for the calls. Just try back in a little bit, and we'll get with it. Yes.
There you go. See, Gary, the quality of the station we were broadcasting from at the time?
I love hearing the producer in the back. Shit.
Yeah, that was the G-Man, I think.
So good.
It is so good.
But yeah, you had to pay for that time. That was money well spent.
Oh, yeah. And I think Nick would have held on forever.
He calls back. And so I did pull that up because he calls back and he talks to Gary for a bit. So if you want, we can play the call back.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's get to that call and see what Nick has to say to our guest, Gary Michael Cappetta.
Well, Marty, we appreciate your report from the Madison Square Garden. I understand David wants to say something.
John, I'd like to add something here.
Sure.
A man of your intelligence obviously has his own show. I don't know why you deal with a mealy-mouthed, mumble-mouthed geek like this guy Marty. Why don't you get somebody out here who can speak?
Well, see, Marty pays a hefty fee to come on the show.
Oh, is that what it is? He pays me on here?
Exactly.
Hey, Mumblemouth, get some voice lessons.
I paid the G-Man to take over from me. I'm not stupid.
We'll see what happens upcoming some of the future shows here. Is there any way that we have our technical problems straightened out by now? Rob? Okay, let's try another call at 661-1440, and let's see what happens. Pro Wrestling Spotlight.
This is Nick from Massapequa.
Hey, Nick, how you doing? That's a lot better.
A lot better. Great. Now I can get to the things. Now I can get to all the things I wanted to ask.
Okay, why don't we you want to ask Gary a question, right?
Yeah, a couple.
Okay, fine.
Okay, can you hear me, Gary?
He'll be right there. Let's move the bulky pouch one out of the way.
All right, we're 25 people here working with 1.5 microphones, so now we're back in place.
Okay, can you hear Gary?
How you doing, Nick?
Good. How you doing, Gary?
All right.
Good. Okay. As a matter of fact, being that you were the Worldwide Wrestling Federation announcer for so many years,
yes,
and you had worked alongside a couple of other announcers in the biz besides Howard Finkel, who does such a good job right now. I was wondering if you could tell me, since you're inside the organization, whatever happened to Buddy Wagner and Joe McEwen?
Joe McHugh is semi-retired. However, he still announces some independent cards in the Allentown, Pennsylvania area. Buddy Wagner is no longer with us.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, there's a misnomer that because I'm a ring announcer and the other guys are ring announcers, that we're a fraternity and we know each other. But usually a promoter will hire one announcer, so that I haven't had the opportunity to spend too much time with any other particular ring announcer because there's only one there on a particular night. However, I do know Howard, because Howard works, aside from ring announcing, he works behind the scenes, and he was doing that when I was doing the announcing for the WWF.
Okay, I'm just straining to hear Gary, because he's not coming in too clearly, but I can vaguely make out what he's saying though. So
well, maybe we can turn the microphone up. You can turn your hearing aid up, and then we'll be connected.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to also ask if anybody knows about what's happened to these other people. What about Jimmy Lennon?
Jimmy Lennon. First of all, a lot of people don't realize that Jimmy Lennon is the uncle of the famous singing Lennon sisters. And but I believe that he's still semi-active in California. California was always his base.
Anyway, what about these? Maybe John knows about these two wrestlers. John, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay. Well, you're not coming. Okay.
Just get it. I'm sorry, Nick. Okay, can you hear me now?
That's better.
Great.
Okay. How about Frank Monti and/or Spiros Arion?
Oh, I wish I knew what Spiros Arion was. He was one of my all-time favorite wrestlers.
I remember
him from back in '66 when he first made his debut, and then he came back and turned heel against San Martino. I don't know what Spiros is. Gary, do you have any idea?
Well,
he's retired, says Marty.
I know that Spiros Arion married Miss Grease, so they're probably on some island someplace enjoying themselves. Yeah.
Probably.
What else do you need if you marry Miss Grease?
And as far as you asking about Frank Monti, I believe he's out working for some independents out in the California area.
I was just saying about Arion. I remember an article that you wrote for the Wrestling News when Danucci and Victor Rivera became champions.
That's right.
And about the feud between Bruno and Arion when he turned on Strongbow. And you had pictures from their match from MSG. And, as a matter of fact, he was I'm being Greek myself, I was kind of interested in whatever happened. I know that some other good Greek wrestlers, like Mike Pappas is in Kentucky with a jewelry shop, is he not?
He was such a little ball of fire. I remember Mike Pappas from back in early 70s, and he was a little ball of fire. I really enjoyed his style.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he worked. I saw him live when he worked Florida, and he was pretty darn good, too. And also, just one last thing I just wanted to ask. What about the NWA TV situation? I was watching a little bit of it yesterday.
Mm-hmm. I saw that show, yes.
Yes, and I was watching a little bit, and I mean, in spite of the temporary loss, at least, of Cornette and this Midnight Express, the show is pretty good. I mean, I'd seen things, I was seeing things that I never got to see with Jim Crockett in charge. I mean, there are people out there, interfering, banging heads with each other, and it wasn't like, it wasn't like, like a 2-second match, then an interview, then another 2-second match.
No, it's definitely that there's more consistency in the program. I've been watching just noticing the improvements that have been taking place week to week there. And Gary, I guess you could elaborate a little bit more on this since you're actively involved with the NWA. I think they're doing a pretty good job.
Well, as with any concern, when there's a change of ownership, there's always a time period where they need to rebuild, they need to reorganize, they need to mesh things. And now they're on their way. They're acquiring name talent. They're developing new talent. And since there are new managers there are a new corporation, and Jim Hurd, who's the executive vice president of World Championship Wrestling, you're seeing the difference, and you will continue to see the difference.
Yeah, it looks pretty good, but the only thing I hope against, I'd like to see something more resembling of the UWF when Bill Watts was in charge in 1986, as opposed to, say, another WWF.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Mike Hayes and Paulie Dangerously do good commentary, but I mean, the glitz is one thing, but I mean, I think that the wrestling standards in the NWA is much better.
Well, there's no doubt about it. You have professionals there who have been very well trained in collegiate wrestling, and I think you're going to see the best of everything. You're going to see the glitz of the UWF, and I think you're going to see the down-home good wrestling of a Ric Flair and a Ricky Steamboat.
That sounds good to me. I'll take that any day of the week. Listen, guys, great show. Take it easy.
Okay, thank you, Nick.
Thanks a lot, Nick.
But yeah, we've had the difficulties since the beginning. But Gary, I wanted Sonny to say hello to you. We love the fact that you joined us here today. We know that your book is still wonderful. We know you're 50 years in the business, and we want to thank you for your time today, Gary.
Oh, that was a shame, John, because I really enjoyed meeting him that day.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had butterflies and everything. Him and Joe McHugh, I forget which one I would watch at midnight on WOR and which one was on Sunday on that, I forget, Canal 47, and
Channel 47, Newark.
Yes, yeah. And
or WNJU, Newark, New Jersey.
And how many times I fell asleep at midnight, woke up for the last match, and thought that I had blinked my eyes, and I only got to see one match, and I missed Mr. Sammartino's interview, and then I wanted to bite my own face.
There you go. If I could do that, sometimes I'd do it. Well, say hello to Marsh, by the way.
Marsh, how are you?
It's good to see you, Broadway.
You couldn't do anything with all of your technical knowledge. You couldn't help Gary out.
It was his connection. It was his connection, man. And I don't know what else was going on.
John, not to change the subject, just before I forget, that Amityville show from Mark Tendler, was that the one with Don Morocco on it?
Yes.
I remember it was Mike Sundance I wrestled that night.
I think it was Mike Sundance.
Yes, because Mark didn't have a match for me.
Was it Mike Sundance, Marsh, or was that the following show that Mark did?
It was not that show. Because as I scrolled through my notes here, I didn't write it down because you say it in the show. You say the clip we have, you do say who it was, and it was somebody else. I thought it was that Chris Masters guy, I thought.
Well, Chris Michaels.
It wasn't Chris Michaels. You mentioned someone else. He might have.
Really? Well, we'll find out.
We'll find out. But anyway, how the heck are you, Sonny Blaze?
I'm well. How are you guys doing? Hey, and I'm going to say it on the air, John. Congratulations on the Mets sweeping the Yankees.
Thank you.
Of course, in a normal world, that should never happen, but it happened.
It's only happened one other time that the Mets swept a series from the Yankees and that was in 2013.
Wow.
It's the only time it ever happened.
So I know you and your nephew were celebrating.
I would believe my nephew was celebrating in New York. I know I was happy yesterday, but I was like, I just couldn't believe that they swept a 4-game series from the Yankees over a couple of months, and I never expected it. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Hey, something that's real fun about Yankee Mets fans is we can rib each other, but I'm always rooting for you. I want my friends to be happy,
Yeah, I'm not a Yankee hater either. I've never hated the Yankees.
No, it's more like it's a work, is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, when the Mets traded Tom Seaver in '77, I stopped my love for the Mets until the Mets were sold in 1980, and I became a Yankee fan. I became a Reggie fan, a Billy Martin fan, Thurman Munson fan, Greg Nettles, Lou
Ron
Piniella, Guidry, of course, Goose. I mean, it was like I used to go to Fenway all the time to see the Yankees play the Red Sox. I was at the Bucky Dent game. I loved the Yankees.
Effing Dent.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, so yeah, and to this day, I don't hate the Yankees. I want the Yankees to do well, and I mean, I'm not gonna root for them against the Mets, of course, but I'm like, I don't have this hatred. There's a rivalry, of course.
It's something as New Yorkers we do to each other. It's a rib. It's just good fun.
It's fun. It's fun. Like Marsh is getting into baseball a lot now too. I threw him right into the fire with baseball.
Hey, going back to a question from Gary, Jimmy Lennon. That's Jimmy Lennon Sr., right?
That's Senior, the original, yeah.
Was he also he was a legendary boxing announcer as well?
He was. Olympic Auditorium in Los Angeles. He was boxing and wrestling announcer.
Yeah, and his son, of course, carries it on. I think he's still doing it today.
Yeah.
So, you see the old fights, and it's Jimmy Lennon doing the announcing.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. But, man, Gary Michael Cappetta met everybody, John. Back in the time in the WWF, you're talking about Spiros Arian. Man, I hated his guts. I really did. And I was afraid that he was going to beat Bruno Sammartino because they were so close friends. And Mr. Sammartino said that they had trained together. I thought, man, this guy knows everything about Mr. Sammartino. And I think they had a 3-match series when I was a kid at the Garden.
It was. It was actually 4.
Was it 4?
Yeah, it was the only time ever that there was 4.
I'm going to say, and then with Mr. Backlund, Pat Patterson had 4 matches.
Oh, okay. So then that was when I was out probably, but I do remember Spiros, and he had more heat than anyone I'd ever seen against Bruno at the Garden. It was like incredible.
Oh yeah, when he tore up Chief Jay Strongbow's headdress and was throwing the feathers all around, and
75, man, that was amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
And by Marsh, how are you doing? It's good to see you.
I'm doing good. I'm excited for seeing you over at the CAC.
Yes.
I know we got a few clips of it coming up. You and the Power Twins in there. I don't know if you've been catching the previous episodes, but we had David Power on, and he's going to come and say hi to you and I both.
Good. I look forward to seeing David. I think.
Oh yeah. He's looking forward to it. He likes you, man.
I like them. In all seriousness, like we talked about, they live their gimmick, and their gimmick is their life. They are actually their gimmick, but they're good guys, and they provided quite a few moments.
You're being kind.
Huh?
You're being kind.
Oh, I don't know how I got away with half of the stuff I said.
Yeah, you're being kind.
We were inches apart. They should have ripped my face,
Yeah.
And now I look back and I'm like, I can't believe I got away with that.
Yeah.
Well, I think the impression I always got talking to David a few times was that and I mean, even talking to Foley was the same thing. The way that they saw the time in studio was a time to fine tune their chops for when they were in a stadium or in an arena or in a ring with a microphone. So the idea of you giving them a stiff one was good, because they're like, how would we respond to this if this was in front of a crowd, right? Like, so I think that they enjoyed every bit of it as much as they were going to come back to you as hard as they could. I think they liked it when you gave them a little bit of a jab,
Well, I think they gave plenty of jabs back. I mean, they were ruthless to callers. Oh my gosh!
Yeah, as this show we're gonna review will show. I mean, it was insane, and I'd be very nervous every week, wondering what they were going to do, because as we talked about, they just show up sometimes without being invited, and they just come in the studio, sit there, and start berating people.
Yeah, which one of us was going to throw them out? They were giants.
We're here now. Yes,
no,
you are.
No mas.
And Cactus, I still remember one. I don't know how many visits he made, but the one where he's comparing the WWF and the WCW with the Munsters and the Addams Family, and blah, blah, and it goes, and you and I are laughing like we're trying to keep it so that it's not hitting the microphones. And then you go, well, thank you for educating us. And he goes very calmly, basically, that's why I'm here, or I'm, something like that.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah,
that was September 17th of 1989. That was the first time,
and it was just great, because you said something about it's like comparing a Whopper and a Big Mac. And he goes,
no.
Well, first he says, yeah, and then no, they're the same thing, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be. That's why this stuff is so cool to relive, and this was your debut. This is so Marsh. I know you have questions on this whole transition, the first few shows, mentioning his name. So yeah, let us know what you have on your mind.
Let's hold off on those questions till right before he comes on, because we got a couple of clips.
Well, yeah, we do.
I want to wrap up
to review this whole Gary Cappetta thing. Messed me
a whole
up,
thing.
Man. I'm shaking.
Just to wrap up the Gary Michael Cappetta thing, I thought it was awesome. You guys talk about his career. He was with WWF for 11 years, 74 to 84. He goes to Pro Wrestling USA, and he's the only person in either of those companies to work at both of those companies at the same time, because of how it just kind of worked out. And he did both of them. And then this was as he was starting with the NWA, which led into another long tenure. So I thought that was really cool. This last clip I have of Gary is the first time you get Johnny Valiant on the line. You and Johnny are going back for a while, and all of a sudden Gary wants to say hi to Johnny. And I thought it was really cool. The funniest thing to me, because I don't think it's in here, I think I cut the clip, Johnny's concerned that him coming back into wrestling may interfere with his traveling for stand-up comedy, which he started. Mm-hmm. I had no idea he started doing stand-up, but apparently he did.
He did, yeah.
For how long, do you know?
A few years. Mm-hmm. And he was playing some pretty big clubs.
That's awesome. This is Johnny and Gary.
Mm-hmm. Maybe an old nemesis or an old friend of yours is sitting
here.
Oh,
an old friend. Luscious John, Gary Cappetta. How you doing?
Oh, sure, yeah. How you doing, Gary?
All right. Listen, John, I think you're being much too humble here.
Yeah, well...
There's no doubt in my mind this last month since I've been watching ESPN Wrestling that you have definitely added much class to that show.
Oh, thank you very much.
Let me tell you that Lee Marshall is he's a wonderful announcer.
Yeah.
But you're able to lend an insight that ordinarily wouldn't be able to the fans wouldn't be able to see through.
I mean, I can kind of match wits with him, huh?
No. Well, he can't match wits with you, John. There's no doubt about that.
Gene Okerlund couldn't either, so I'll see how this guy's
doing. Yeah, not only that, but I had a couple of friends of mine that happened to catch you out on the island at one of the comedy clubs, and they just said their sides were hurt for weeks.
Well, I hope it wasn't the food out there. I hope it's some of that stand-up comedy it's something that it's kind of the invasion of Normandy. I mean, I feel like somebody coming out of a big carrier ship or something hitting the beaches. It's some people would be very scary, because that's what people have told me in various airports that I sit down and read a paper or something while waiting for a flight. That, geez, you're doing comedy and that. Geez, I always wanted to try, but
yeah,
it's like anything else, Gary. You get out there and you get the door slammed in your face. It's like being in the desert looking for glasses of water, only they're filled with laughter rather than the H2O,
Mm-hmm. Well, the fans should know that in the 15 years that I've been ring announcing, that whenever I've announced the luscious Johnny Valiant, with your brother, without your brother, it's always one of the most unpredictable moments in my career, because I'd never know what the hell you were doing in there. And it's always been a pleasure.
Wow,
it's always been a pleasure. Fine, man. I'm going to turn you back to John Anthony.
Okay, good.
Now, can I tell you a brief story about Luscious Johnny?
Yes.
I was doing one of Tommy D's shows in Brooklyn. And originally I'm scheduled to work with Big John Studd. So I'm talking with John, and he was very frank. He can't sell for me very much. He's twice my size. So I'm in the ring and I'm waiting for Big John Studd, and out comes Ivan Koloff. Ivan Koloff was being managed by luscious Johnny Valiant. So I looked at the referee. I said, am I out for the wrong match? He said, no, there's been a change. So I know everything's going to be fine so long as I do what Mr. Koloff says, and I didn't even know he was in the building. So he gets in the ring and he has that chain. So he's coming at me with the chain. So of course I jump out of the ring and I stand stock still because he's whipping the chain over the rope. And I know if I move, I might get hit, but I know this is Ivan Koloff. He knows what he's doing. And he misses me by, 6 inches to my left. And then luscious Johnny, of course, he got involved. So it was, but anyway, Mr. Koloff made me look like Bob Backlund that night.
Wow.
And it was all, you know the old expression, he could wrestle a broomstick. Mr. Koloff, I was the broomstick. He made me look like I was the world champion of the world. And Marsh, goes back to David and Larry. Afterwards, I asked him about it because that was the first time I had never met my opponent a minute before a match. And I asked them, and they said, you wouldn't believe how good he made you look. Because, of course, they knew it wasn't me. It was Ivan, and he was selling for me. And and then, to have luscious Johnny interfering. So again, I've had these incredible matches where I've worked with legends. And I remember it so well. And I remember Mr. Koloff, how kind he was after the match, and Johnny coming up to me and, hey, nice job, kid, And then he went off and was, I think he was joking around with Mark Tendler. The two of them had sort of, what do you call that? Going back and forth, just a comedy thing of their own, because they knew each other from, I don't know, the Model T or something.
They were playing off each other.
Yeah. And Captain Lou was there. That night I wrestled his nephew, Carmine Albano. And I'm supposed to start working with him and do some yabba dabba in the corner. And he was supposed to hit me or something. And he just walks off and starts signing autographs for kids. And I didn't know what to do. But I love that memory of luscious Johnny and Mr. Koloff. That's just like my match with Cowboy Bob Orton, John Tolis, and Mr. Sammartino. These are, for that, 12 minutes, I got to be with three legends of wrestling, and these are great memories, Marsh. John,
most of your career was spent with legends of wrestling, and I don't think that's I don't think it's anything to shake your nose at. Every time I look up more Sonny Blaze stuff, it's always against some top star who's in the Hall of Fame, and you're like, man, he was right there with them that whole time.
Well, I can't take credit for putting them there, but it's nice to know.
They needed someone to make them look good and strong on the way up. A lot of them was early on in their pushes, and they needed someone to believably make them look like they were doing something to somebody. I think that's part of what Luscious was doing there. You can't beat nobody and be better off. You got to be beating somebody. So,
well, when I worked with Sean, that was right after his turn.
Yeah.
When I worked with Taker, that was his very first match in the WWF. It was taped before SummerSlam, Survivor Series, excuse me.
Yeah.
And I just realized something tonight, John. I think they realized that you were sandbagging when you worked with Dusty. I'm sorry, who else was it?
Strongbow.
Yeah, you sandbagged in those matches, and they realized it. So they weren't going to put you in there with Bob Backlund where you'd shoot on him and take the title, and they couldn't afford to have that happen. So I get it now.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, that makes sense. By the way, Dusty walked out of the ring and said, that guy's going home champion if you're not careful.
But you know how many times I love Mr. Backlund as well. And that I don't know what to call it, that deadlift he does when they bar his arm and he just deadlifts somebody up.
Yeah.
And I realize that's not a flashy move like some sort of triple somersault off the top rope through a table. But if anybody knew how difficult that is, how impossible that is, that only a man like Mr. Backlund can do it.
Well, I tell you one thing, if I'm glad that I wasn't in that match, that third taping that night, because I would have broken my arm. My arm would have come off. I would have been the one-armed bandit from The Fugitive. And we're going to be, see what this is going to be. It's like, we're going to go back in history and we're going to kind of relive these early days, these beginnings of your career, beginning of Pro Wrestling Spotlight. You know, Marsh is a captive, a prisoner of our history, but I think he learns something each and every week, especially when he hears these shows. So let's go back 35 years and start reviewing this show from that time period. When we were all much younger. The world was our oyster.
I know we mentioned last week that we were going to listen to a little bit more of the Bruno Uncensored, and that's just not going to happen. We've got too much good stuff from this week to try and go back.
I understand.
So, but what I did want to do is, I don't know how many times you ever got Larry Zbyszko on, but he's also not like somebody I heard a lot about doing a bunch of interviews and stuff. Yeah. But I remember him fondly because I was a kid when he was an announcer for WCW, and I thought he was like one of the coolest announcers, and he just seemed so legit. And I remember as a kid finding out he was a wrestler because I thought he was just an announcer. It was a whole thing. I've been fascinated by him as a character. This is a snippet to kind of piggyback off of the clip we played last week where Bruno talks about Larry. And this is his response, Larry's response to what Bruno had told you.
Okay.
Well, we understand what you're saying. One thing that you're doing, though, Larry, that is irritating a lot of people continuously is this constant vendetta that you have against Bruno Sammartino. I know you had a match recently in Pittsburgh. Bruno came in. He went into the ring. After all this time, you still turned your back on him. Why are you still doing this to Bruno Sammartino?
Old Sammartino. Boy, that thing just haunts me. You know, people are going to have to realize, number one.
But you keep bringing it up also.
No, Sammartino is a thing of the past as far as I'm concerned. You know, I had a match with Sergeant Slaughter in Pittsburgh, and I went out and I did some, radio shows for it and stuff, and I found out that there's Bruno Sammartino, once again pulling the same tricks locally that he tried to do to me back in 1980. And now Sammartino's playing his little games, and in Pittsburgh, he'll stab you in the back in the locker room, when the media, no one's around. But then, of course, when he's in front of the media and the people, he's Mr. Nice Guy. I'm not saying he wasn't one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, because, the man was truly like a gorilla without hair. He was, at one time, the toughest. But his knack for swerving the people amazes me. And sure enough, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, after he be bad-mouthed me left and right behind my back and the backs of the people in Pittsburgh, out comes Bruno Sammartino in front of the whole crowd and walks up to me and sticks out his hand like I'm supposed to shake it.
You couldn't let bygones be bygones?
It's not the point of bygones. It's the point of integrity and that long-lost animal called honesty. I'm not going to lie to everybody and stick my hand out and shake Bruno's hands when in my heart I'm saying, you lying jerk, you swerving artist. You con man. But I'm supposed to smile and shake his hands with the people of Pittsburgh, get some impression. Well, I gave him exactly what I felt in my heart and what was honest. I turned my back on the man just like I did in 1980 after he turned his back on me first.
How did you...
People can call it a vendetta. You can call it anything you want. I call it honesty. I call it integrity. I call it looking myself in the face of the mirror when I shave every morning, and I'm proud of what I see.
Well, Sammartino was on the show last week, and he's still irate that you still claim that you retired him from wrestling.
There he goes again. you'd think the man would be retired and keep his mouth shut, but he's still irate about this, irate about that. I claimed I retired him.
What a great promo this guy.
That was great.
And I can never figure out whether he's shooting or if it's a work with him.
I try to figure that. Well, in the end, we find out that it was work. But
well, he did it pretty damn well, didn't he?
Yeah, because try to discern that from, is it a shoot or it sounds like a shoot.
That's what wrestling's supposed to be. It's supposed to be the suspension of disbelief.
Absolutely, John. And Larry Zbyszko was great at that. And every time I think about Mr. Zbyszko, and I'll see an old match of his, and he reminds me more of Bruno Sammartino than David Sammartino reminded me of Bruno. He had the way he stood in the ring with that, his right foot was 90 degrees to his left foot, which is a shooter stance. He's ready to go. And with the knees bent, the way you would, with the arms, the hands open, but sort of crescent, like ready to clinch. And he just reminded me of Mr. Sammartino so much. And of course, I don't think strength-wise he was in the neighborhood of Bruno Sammartino, but
who was?
Yeah, he wasn't in the same time zone. But you're right. Who was? There's maybe Mr. Patara, and that would be it.
Yeah, sure.
That's why I played this one, because I was listening to it and I was all like, I gotta ask if there was like real heat there for a while, like if they ever buried the hatchet. Because I'm listening to it, like I know the story obviously of what happened in ring, but I was like, at this point, Larry's the AWA world champion. It was done, and said that he's embarrassed that he even came back the last time. So you're not building a program, but you're still keeping kayfabe. It's crazy.
And Mr. Sammartino did that for the longest time. And he probably would have insisted that Mr. Zbyszko keep the kayfabe going.
Yeah, I mean, even when I brought them together in '92 at the convention, I was the big deal. It was my main event. It was the reunion between Bruno and Larry. And I was kind of like, these guys really don't like each other, because they wouldn't sit at the same table.
Right.
They were very cold to each other. And I was like, what the hell did I get myself into with these two? I mean, because it looks like, they were not, at least what the impression was, the work. If it was the work, they worked me. I was the promoter of the show. They worked everybody who attended and bought a ticket to the reunion. They wouldn't take pictures together with the fans. So it was, they carried it to the very end.
But a few years before Mr. Sammartino passed away, they started loosening the kayfabe up. They would take pictures together. They'd smile together. Yeah. Mr. Zbyszko would talk very highly of Mr. Sammartino. Yeah.
And back in these days, it was like total, like, and it was actually, as we'll play this whole interview, obviously, for patrons can hear it. Zbyszko was putting over David more than he was doing anything for Bruno. Because it looked like he wanted to work a program with David during this time period.
And if he sympathizes with David being buried by the Sammartino name and all of this, that's what he accused Mr. Sammartino of doing to him.
Right.
He was buried under the legend of his mentor. And that was a great turn. That was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was great to have Larry on.
Actually, it was completely believable.
Yeah, it was. Because I always loved having Larry on. Because Larry was so believable in anything he said.
Oh yeah, and he was just Larry Zbyszko was great. If anything, he's underrated because he's not mentioned when people talk about the all-time greats. They don't mention Larry Zbyszko, and they should. Now, I didn't like that when he came out with the nunchucks in the AWA. I thought, okay, we can live without that. That was, but he did know how to work them really, really well. And I thought every time I saw Larry Zbyszko, I saw Bruno Sammartino. The stance, the moves, the way he'd get back up on both feet, and he'd be ready to go. And I think Larry Zbyszko was he must have admired Mr. Sammartino a ton, because he was the mirror image. He should have been, no, I don't want to say that. That's wrong. Forgive me. But he was so much like a son to Mr. Sammartino, that it just, if anyone was going to carry the legacy of Bruno Sammartino, it could have been Larry Zbyszko, except he worked the rest of his career as a heel. And I don't recall Mr. Sammartino ever turning heel.
Yeah. Never did.
No. So
it's also interesting that I think about it. The way I knew him growing up through WCW is Eric Bischoff would always put him over as the living legend. And I never really pieced it together that was a little jab at Bruno probably the entire time.
And he did it on purpose. And in the beginning, he was the new living legend. And then somewhere along the line, they just dropped the word new. And Larry Zbyszko went with the living legend. But yeah, that was a shot at, that was part of the heat.
Which they're long done wrestling at this point, and they kept it going, which is so fun. It's so cool.
Yeah, but if you had asked Bruno Sammartino in 2005, is wrestling a work? He would have said, no promoter ever asked me to lose a match. Would you agree, John?
Yeah, he kept it close to the vest.
Yeah,
I think until really close to the end of his life. But I don't ever recall, and I haven't watched a lot of shoot interviews on the internet with Bruno. But I think he kept it close to the vest really till the very end.
Until he realized, I think that it's out. It's no use.
There was no use, right?
Right.
They probably did it to spite Vince. Because at this point, they're already starting to talk sports entertainment. Now they hate it and everything.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because in the time we're talking about where the Pro Wrestling Spotlight came around, there was sort of a faction among us fans because the WWF, we were starting to look at that as kind of being carnivalish. Do you remember, John?
Yeah, circus-like, yeah.
Because it wasn't what we grew up with. There was no kayfabe. There wasn't even the pretense of kayfabe. And everybody was a character instead of a person. Nobody had a name anymore. It was, hey, we got Zoom from the planet.
Yeah, we got the Berserker. We have Max Moon. We have, the Repo Man. All of that stuff. That whole era was just ridiculous.
And we were as fans, we were just drawing a line, and that feeds into the Cactus Jack's Addams Family Monster thing.
And it's apparent with the callers. A lot of the callers, especially with Gary having left WWF, him saying flat out he would never go back because of the direction. Bruno saying that he didn't like the direction it was going. Larry saying that, the guys in that thing aren't. So we're starting to see it here in the show, and we're already hearing it. What I do want to get to is we start at this point. I have a series of clips that just get into what I believe to be the heart of Pro Wrestling Spotlight and what it becomes for the next several years. The first of which is this is the first episode that LNS Comics is a sponsor. You have, I think, 3 or 4 reads. Did they, before I play it, did they give you a script or did you write a script, John? Because you clearly were reading.
Yeah, I wrote it. They gave me, like a lot of clients do, they give you talking points and let's hammer home this, and this. Then I write the script and read it. So it wasn't ad-libbed. It was totally off a script.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if they gave it to you or not, but I'm assuming what it was is their bullet points listed a series of things that you clearly didn't know what they were.
Especially with some of the way I pronounce some of the words.
Yep. So this is where you figured out, because the first ad read I wanted to play, but it wasn't my favorite ad read that you had done. So I'm playing this one instead, because this is where you determine how you're going to pronounce this word. Because you were much closer in the first try than you got here. And then this is where you did it from here on out.
Do you know that there's a store that carries all the latest in wrestling merchandise, including the WWF action figures, which are becoming impossible to find? All WWF and other wrestling magazines, including old back issues, plus all Nintendo cartridges, including the new Nintendo wrestling cartridge. Did you also know that this store carries a huge selection of comic books and character-related merchandise, including the now famous Batman t-shirts? All this can be bought at L&S Comics, located conveniently in central Long Island at 1379 Jerusalem Avenue in North Merrick. Call them at 516-489-X-Men. That's 516-489-X-Men. L&S also stocks a full line of baseball cards such as Fleer, Topps, and Donruss. So go and visit Larry and Steve at L&S Comics, located at 1379 Jerusalem Avenue in North Merrick. Call 516-489-X-Men. That's 516-489-X-Men. And make sure you place your order now for the latest shipment of the WWF action figures. After the shipment is depleted, there might not be another for a very long time. L&S, they're also taking advance orders for the hot new Nintendo handheld wrestling game, as well as orders for the hot WrestleMania Nintendo cartridge. Call L&S today at 516-489-X-Men.
Yeah.
So you start out Nintendo.
Yes.
Which is very close to Nintendo, but then you notice the other end and you go, oh, it's Nintendo.
Mm.
And then you really hammer home from then on out, Nintendo.
And that was a weekly thing.
Yes.
I remember those commercials, John. You know, wow, I love this show. It just brings stuff back. I remember Larry from L&S Comics. I forget the full number, but the X-Men.
Yeah.
Man, that was great. So look at that.
This is what I'm honored for. This, first of all,
holy cow,
facsimile of this Bruno Morales early days belt, which showed up on my doorstep, gifted to me by our guest. So this was one of the biggest honors I ever got. And then, so knowing that I'm in the baseball stuff with the podcast, this then comes. Look at this bad boy. Look at this. Yeah. This is like, forget about it. So another gift from Broadway Sonny Blaze to me.
So they owe you a World Series, John.
Yep. Maybe this is the year.
Now,
rise, a miracle.
I want to tell you something. I made Aaron Rodgers a promise. If he brings a Super Bowl to us long, just dreadful Jet fans, if he brings a Super Bowl, I will give him this belt, and I'll go a step further. I'll ask Mick Foley to award it to him. I'll see if I can get Cactus to do that. And so I got my Jets belt.
I got my Mets.
Man, you got it upside down, John.
Oh, that's my life. My life in a nutshell.
You need Arnold Skolin to put it on you. It looks good.
But yeah, I thought it was
I can't
notable.
strap it around my waist, so I put it around my neck.
I was happy for you. When I saw that, I had to get that for you.
Well, I love it.
John, can I ask
one more thing?
Go ahead.
I got one for me. I wanted one of these since I was 8 years old, Marsh.
Yeah.
So I had them both made, and I got one too, John. So maybe we get together. We'll take on whoever. I don't even know who the champions are these days, but we'll slap them around. All right.
None of them have the lineage that you guys have. They haven't faced the people you faced. You know?
No. But
John, how'd you meet Larry?
I met Larry. That's a good question, because most of the sponsors that are on the show, I would cut out ads in penny savers and little local newspapers, call them up and pitch advertising. So I don't know if L&S was advertising in local newspapers, or I don't know if someone referred me that they have wrestling stuff in their store, and I showed up and did a cold call.
I thought Thomas did.
My brother-in-law?
Yeah, I thought somehow.
Well, maybe you know better than I. You know, I'm going to pull I'm 67-year-old. I don't fucking remember everything. So you could very well be correct.
That would make sense. That would make sense if he saw it.
I feel like
it was probably Thomas.
He told it to you, and then you went and spoke to them.
I bet you that's what happened.
Do you think that he heard an ad for them and said you should be on this one, or do you think he drove by?
Thomas worked for the NYG. He was a collector, so he would collect the money from all the sales accounts. So he might have seen it on his route, like maybe it was a next door pizzeria, or a little clothing store or a dry cleaner, because NYG would sell, these little $100 a week packages to everybody. And so he was probably said, these guys, LNS Comics, they have some wrestling stuff in there, so maybe you should go see them.
You should go talk.
Yeah, they might have had the action figures in the window or something. But
I'll see him in about a week. I'm going to ask him that question, because I'm actually going to I want to bring him on the show, because he's such an NYG historian.
Oh gosh.
And that's the type of things that I'm going to do here. It's like let's say when TJ from Deer Park, when I hear the show where it's like, well, that's his first call, so let's bring him on, and talk about that. Vinny from West Babylon, Vinny LaFranco, and all of those guys that were such a big part of this initial first year. So if anyone is around and alive and can be a part of like listening back, I think that'd be cool for people.
And I don't know why, but I feel like I remember hearing that Thomas.
You were probably accurate.
I don't know.
I would have to say I would bet it. Bet it that's true.
It sounds incredibly possible. Which also, anyone who is listening, if anyone has any route or knows who Joey from Babylon, the Dean of Wrestling, send us, any of us, an email, a tweet, whatever it takes. We want him back so bad. Since we're speaking of ads, there was a couple ads that I wanted to ask you about without playing, because it was just, they were no point. But you had advertising from Eastern Baseball Academy teaching kids the fundamentals of baseball.
Yeah.
Was that from your previous connections?
No, that was an ad in the Penny Saver. I think I had 2 baseball sponsors on this one.
Yeah, Game Time Computer Sports with Rotisserie Baseball, which I think is a fantasy league.
Yeah, that's 1989 we're talking about.
Yeah.
The infancy of computers.
Yeah.
Of these home
Game
computers.
Time Computer Sports. That's what their name was. And I was writing it down because I was like, what? And they're like, we do rotisserie baseball. I was like, that doesn't mean anything. But I listened to it over and over, and I figure it's fantasy football.
Those were the days of, even before BBS services, bulletin board services, and with Prodigy and AOL. And I mean, it was just kind of like, it was all just getting started. Now look where we are. We turn our phone on and you get fucking berated with God knows what every day.
Let's see. Let's keep moving a little bit. Here is a phone call, because I want to get to a couple. Questions I have for Broadway here, and we're getting pretty close to it. But this is a phone call that we had for Gary that David Power thought that he might be able to weigh in at the end. Beneficially.
661-1440. Pro Wrestling Spotlight.
John, my name is Sharon, and I have a couple of comments that I have been trying to get somebody to listen to. Okay. One of them is that I don't know how the wrestling community, how much they're aware of the fact that there are a lot of visually impaired people who really enjoy wrestling shows and would really enjoy going to the big arenas a lot better. But usually we end up, if we go to arenas, we end up putting a tape in the VCR and then coming home and playing it back. Because in the larger arenas like MSG, there is no cable commentary piped out into the audience. I'm so glad Gary Cappetta's on tonight, because he knows exactly what I'm talking about. And it would enhance, you'd probably get more visually impaired people in your audiences at the Garden if you could do it in 2 ways. Either one of them, to have the ring announcer do a little more side commentary, or, which would be a better one, would be for the public, is if electronically there could be some way that the cable feed could be, maybe, it could be piped into like a small pocket receiver that could be rented.
Right. I think I understand what you're saying. It's a very unique concept. What we could probably do here at the Pro Wrestling Spotlight is pass that idea along to some of the promoters.
Is there any? who can I go about contacting?
Well, I'll let Gary answer that part of the question for you.
I think you're referring...
And also, can I just say, John, just one side comment. Okay. I want to honestly say that I think the WWF are not given the play to the Midnight Rockers, or the Rockers as they call themselves now, that they deserve, because I think those are two of the handsomest young guys in pro wrestling, and I love
a lot of women feel that way.
I think you're referring to the kind of a system where on Broadway, in the Broadway shows, if you want, you can rent a box and you can sit there. I would say, first of all, to be honest with you, I don't think you're going to get too far with it, because from what I know of the management of the promoters that work the Garden and also the management of the Garden, that they're really not going to care too much about the the people that come. If you can't, honestly, I think that's going to be the bottom line.
No, I understand that, but I figure Vince McMahon is making so much money, he could use it as a tax write-off. It would be a wonderful public service, for him to do or something like that.
Yeah, I think that maybe one of the Power Twins has Dave.
I have one suggestion for you, lady. Wipe your glasses and get closer seats. It's the only way you get to see the matches. And stop bothering us with these stupid questions.
Would you cut it out?
Hey, you ain't going to intimidate me, buddy boy.
Yeah, well, we're sorry about his intimidating comments, and we thank you for the call, okay?
Okay, take care, John.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we're going to try to get Larry Zbyszko on the line, and...
Man, just ruthless. Just ruthless.
That was only the beginning of the problem.
I remember
that situation, as we'll hear in the next couple of episodes, because I almost got thrown off the air.
And John, what that young lady was asking about now, when I think about it, do you remember the old Bayshore Drive-In?
Yeah, of course.
Remember when they did away with those boxes that you put on your window and you tuned your radio to, like, I don't know, channel 50 or something like that, AM, and that's how you got the movie in.
Yeah.
So something like that is extremely plausible to do at Madison Square Garden over radio waves.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a bad idea that she was giving. But I do want to also let everybody know that Mr. McMahon, the WWF, I don't want to say Mr. McMahon, it might have been Mrs. McMahon. They did an evening show, and earlier that day there was a matinee that was strictly for handicapped people. And it was free of charge. I don't know how you went about getting tickets and stuff, but it was like special places for wheelchairs, and they put this matinee, and it was almost identical to the evening show, but they did that, and it was free of charge. So the WWF was a company, and I assume still is, a company that had heart in that way. They did do things that gave back.
It's interesting.
So
their philanthropic
thank you.
Initiatives have been incredible to this very day, from Make-A-Wish to everything they did over all the run of the last 30, 40 years. That's one thing that they did very well, was to work with handicap and enlighten lives.
Yes.
And give those people the opportunity and give them experiences that were just so incredible to this day.
And the wrestlers were never hesitant about doing it. They never, never complained about, well, the payday. I mean, Make-A-Wish is completely free, and I don't know of any of the guys who have ever said no. If they could, maybe for one reason or another, they couldn't, scheduling didn't work, but there'd be somebody else ready to go.
Yep.
That's wrestlers and boxers have the biggest hearts.
Yep. I did find it interesting that she called in, and from the conversation sounded like she may be blind, but also said that the Rockers were very good looking guys. So I was a little confused.
Well, she might have been calling in. She might have had a son or something.
Maybe on behalf of someone. Or
correct.
In generality, she might have just been a good-hearted person, but she was given the Power Twins treatment, and I think a spoiler for the following show, I think we get a phone call from someone actually from an association for visually impaired people who call up, and the twin was in the studio again, and there was an issue. So we won't give away all of it because it unfolds over the next couple of weeks.
And to your point, Marsh, about them working on their character using the
They didn't have a character. It was them.
It really was, yeah. I'm trying, John. I'm trying. I swear. I'm trying to. I'm trying to salvage.
There's no suspension of disbelief with the Power Twins. They are who they were. They are what they are, and they're still the same.
Yeah. From that last when you tried to get them on the show, that was just a monkey fuck. A monkey and a football. Figure it out.
I'm going to start calling this Clusterfuck Rewind Show.
Okay, so I'm allowed to say the monkey fucking a football.
And this one, they were butting in all sorts of ones, calling people Millie Mouse, Mumble Mouse. I don't even know where Millie Mouse comes from, but they say it so much, I feel like.
They weren't exceptionally clever. They were just mean-spirited.
I almost went down that road. I don't think you have this, Marsh. I don't know if you clipped it. The Marty Pereira Madison Square Garden report. You probably
next.
Don't. Oh, you do have it?
I have it. It's not the entire report because there's a little bit
kind
before.
Of one classic. That one time he said that one name. That
he said a few things.
Forever.
He said a few things, and then to the point where, even at that point. So, let's play it. This is, I believe how this clip was structured is that it's you and David reminiscing about your win, going into Marty Pereira's report, and getting to a point where it just kind of falls apart.
All right, why don't we do this right now? Let's talk to David from the Power Twins. David, congratulations, first of all, on the big victory last week.
John, you might as well congratulate yourself, too. I
had a great time.
Oh, of course, we all had a great time. It was a good show. And, of course, the people got a chance to see the Power Twins in action. But let me say something about... We have traveled all over the world. We've been Europe, Africa, Canada, all over the United States. And the other night, this is our first time we've been back in New York in over a year. And thanks to the guidance and direction of John Anthony, we had an easy time the other night with these two guys, whoever they were. And I just want to tell John to congratulate himself, pat himself on the back because he did a great managerial job.
It was a lot of fun just working with two class guys like yourselves.
You're right about that.
We understand there's some other upcoming shows in the area. You guys are going to be working. Please tell fans about that.
Well, we were talking with the promoter now about doing something in a few weeks in Brooklyn. I don't know what exactly entails. We're still talking to the promoter. You said you're going to speak with him next week. We're in negotiations. And this will give a chance to people in Kings County to get a good look at the Power Twins and their new manager, John Anthony.
Well, I am in the process of getting my manager's license from the New York State Athletic Commission, and hopefully if you guys are in any kind of trouble at all, I'll be able to help you out in any possible way.
We don't need the help, but we're glad you're back there watching our backs, John.
Super. And one thing I'd like to just mention to everyone out there, if you hadn't had a chance up to this point to see the Power Twins in action, you'll be seeing them upcoming in many local shows, and just look out for them because they're going to the top.
Thank you very much, John. Any of you people out there in Radio Land got a question, don't be afraid to ask.
Don't be afraid to ask, and we'll try to get our technical problems straightened out because we do have a lot of guest stars upcoming. Right now, we're going to turn it over to Marty Pereira. Is somebody saying that right, Marty?
Yes, that's right, John.
Marty,
finally getting it right.
Marty was the ring announcer the other night. Also, we have the G-Man in back of us, and the G-Man did announce the tag team encounter with the Power Twins, and I think we scared you out of the ring, but I think it was a lot.
John, why do you think I had him do that match?
Well, because we told you beforehand if you stepped into the ring with us, you'd be in a lot of trouble.
Well, he was my insurance policy. That's why he was in there.
All right. Why don't you go over what happened at Madison Square Garden last week?
All right, John. Last Monday night at the Garden, there were several matches and a number of upsets. In the first match, Paul Romer defeated Boris Zukov. Dino Bravo, with his new manager Jimmy Hart, defeated the Mighty Hercules. In an upset, the Bushwhackers defeated the Brainbusters.
I couldn't believe that myself.
That probably means...
That was an upset. That was a big upset. I never anticipated the Bushwhackers defeating the team of the Brainbusters. I was shocked. I saw the videotape, incidentally, the other day, and I was just appalled.
That probably means that the Brainbusters are going to win the tag team title.
The Brainbusters, they just lost.
Normally, it used to be that way, but in the World Wrestling Federation now, you usually lose and then get the title. Look at what happened to Rick Rude.
well, on any given day, anyone could lose or win. One thing I did notice from that team, the Bushwhackers with their unorthodox style. It was probably just looking at them that really upset the Brainbusters.
Well, I wouldn't have my sister go out with either one of them.
We're trying to be comedian here. What else happened at the Garden that night?
All right, Greg Valentine defeated the Blue Blazer.
The who?
The Blue Blazer. All right. Bret Hitman Hart and Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig went to a 20-minute draw.
Mm-hmm.
The Blue Blazer.
I remember that.
He never lived it down. I mean, it wasn't too long after that he stopped showing up, because it would be like we'd be like ribbing him on Blue Blazer.
Blue Blazer.
And how we talked, basically. Yeah, and then at one point, I mean, I think it played it earlier with one of the calls where he's like, "What are you doing with this mumble mouth, John? I thought you were the guys that you're like, he pays for the time."
Yeah.
Did he actually pay you a little bit to come on and take the air?
No.
I didn't know if he'd like spot you $15 or whatever, because you pay for the time, right?
Yeah, I needed the dough.
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to get sponsors, and he's all like, "Hey, can I come on and do a report?" All right, it's $25 for 10 minutes. You know, like
I think he might have been the one that set me up with Tendler. Now that I think about it,
and Marty,
he used to hang out at NYG. He knew people at NYG other than me,
and he was politically connected in Suffolk County.
He was, yeah, he was.
I forget how, but yeah. Believe it or not, Marty was no dope. It's just.
I heard he's the head of the ticket of the Independent Party this year for the presidential election.
Did he knock RFK Jr. out?
He actually moved to Texas. He's in Texas now. Well, he left New York.
I always thought he was a nice man. I forget what he owned a business. I forget what it was.
He was a life insurance. He was an insurance salesman. Yeah.
Insurance, yes.
Yeah.
I knew it was some sort of professional company he owned, and he was very politically connected. Nice man, wanted to. As a matter of fact, he was sad. He wished that he had never gotten involved with pro wrestling.
Of course, it gutted him.
Well, because he didn't enjoy it as much once he wanted to be part of it because he loved it so much. Yeah. And then when he got involved, it sucked out some of the love he had for it.
Yeah.
Because he saw how it can be a little bit icky.
It does that to 95% of the people that try to get in it.
I believe that's true, at least.
Yeah, once you see all the sausage is made.
There you go.
Yeah, I think we have some pictures like in post-production we'll post.
Yeah, there's going to be pictures throughout this, some archival stuff there. But yeah, you have a picture with him too, right?
Yeah, I have a picture. He's getting a headlock by one of the Power Twins outside of NYG with that. You were at that thing too, Al. The variety charity that we were outside. Yep. Mr. and Mrs. Hornstein were there, and the Power Twins, and yourself and Chris Michaels, LNS Comics, Marty Puerwa was there.
Yes.
And Lenny Coco of the Chimes, who was a DJ at NYG, and Pearl Greenberg, who was the bookkeeper. And it was like we were raising money for a Variety Children's Charity, a very reputable organization. And then at the end of the day, Mrs. H and Pearl Greenberg went into the office with the cash box to write the charity check, but they wouldn't let the charity count the money first. So I'm sure that they didn't get their full take.
Man, that's a lot of that going around.
Oh, there was that going. They invented it 30-something years ago.
That was a nightmare. I mean, the stories you told, because I didn't know the workings at the station, but when you would tell me, they were so unbelievable that they'd make me laugh. Because I couldn't believe they could have made a television show about that radio station.
And today, if they were all still alive, if 35 years ago we had the technology we had today, they would have had a great reality show. It would have been that freaking station was a reality show.
Yeah, I think so. I used to love your stories, and then Donna would have hers, and Thomas would have his, and I'd be listening, going, "Oh my gosh, this exists," and not a single thing was ever favorable. And it was like, how are these people staying in business?
The memories, though.
Marsh, you got to be there. Those stories were great.
I love all those stories and the photos that he's finally digging up. I've been asking for them forever. I'm like, I need more photos, John. Give them up. So I was looking it up while you guys were reminiscing for a second here, because we are up to the point where Broadway Sonny Blaze makes his Pro Wrestling Spotlight debut. However, on episode 1, the very first one, John says, I have Al Schaefer in studio. We're going to get him on today. He didn't have time because he interviewed Mark Tendler, Steamboat, and Jimmy Hart took up most of the time, and it was only 1 hour long show.
Wait, I got bumped for wait a second. I got bumped for Ricky Steamboat?
I think you got bumped for Brian Donahue.
Okay. So long as it's not some meager nobody like Ricky Steamboat. Jeez.
Episode 2, you were in studio again.
I met Ricky Steamboat on his show when he was the NWA champion with the big belt.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then episode 2, you were in studio again, but you got bumped by the Bruno Sammartino interview. Ridiculous. Episode 3, you're bumped for time because, for one, everyone's in studio, so they put you behind the glass, and they had a long call with Paul Heyman. So you're finally debuting.
Paul Dangerously.
Paulie Dangerously.
John,
how bad did you feel being bumped by all these? Like, what?
Well, here's what I feel bad about is, had John brought me on sooner, think of where John would be today. He would be Howard Stern. He would have his own station on XM.
But look at it this way also. Once you did get on air,
you couldn't get rid of me.
You were there every week for a year.
That's right.
Every week before you let him on.
I was a groupie.
You became the co-host.
So I do have a couple questions before we play this clip.
Sure.
3 weeks in a row, Al Schaefer is in studio. What do you say? What are you celebrating?
The Mets are playing the Braves. They just hit a 2-run home run. They're winning.
That's Rotary baseball.
Francisco Lindor, MVP. I'm sorry, go ahead.
3 weeks in a row, Al Schaefer is in studio. Week 4, Broadway Sonny Blaze is in studio. Did you not have a name yet before Mark Tendler's show in Amityville?
I probably didn't.
Do you remember how you got the name Broadway Sonny Blaze?
Yes. First of all, the Broadway I stole straight from Joe Namath.
Nice.
Broadway Joe Namath. Not knowing that there was a wrestling term going Broadway.
Yeah.
And that there would be promoters who saw the moniker Broadway and think that there was a connection. Because
you do hour longs a lot?
40 minutes. And I'm like, John, you know what 10 minutes in a ring is. And it's like,
no, I only know what 4 minutes is.
But, you'd get some promoter and, I'm up in Connecticut doing 40 minutes. It's like, I'm not a 40-minute guy yet. But so anyway, we were talking, a friend of mine and I were talking about names that, you could use during interviews and stuff like that. Because you were thinking way ahead, I'm going to be Ric Flair one day. And so, you're sitting there thinking, and it's got to be something that you can do something with, So we're kicking around words like fury. Well, I'm not furious. Furious is a different persona. I said, I want something hot. And then we started thinking about fire, and the word blaze just came to my mind. And then you guys, everybody in the world has seen The Godfather, right? Godfather 1.
Yeah.
My favorite character in that whole movie was James Caan playing Sonny Corleone.
Yeah.
So I took the Sonny Blaze and the Broadway, and it just sounded good together. Broadway Sonny Blaze. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Sounds great. I love the name.
And John, if you remember, I had business cards made with the New York skyline, and it said Broadway Sonny Blaze with my phone number on it. And I still have I have one of them somewhere, and my big sister, my oldest sister, baby Barbara, has one. And I still have my baseball jacket hanging up in my closet.
No kidding.
Yes.
Yep. With the skyline with the flames, and it says Broadway Sonny Blaze. Yeah, I still got it in my closet.
Oh, that's cool, man.
The next time I do this, if you don't mind, I'll bring the jacket just to show you guys.
Absolutely. We'd love to see. Oh, yeah.
I'd say wear it at CAC, but I'm afraid the bully's going to be a dick about it.
Woo!
You know what? I'm going there. I mean, if I occupy that much of his mind after 30 years, he's going to be doing his thing. He's going to be busy with fans. I'm going to be doing my
You're
thing.
You're going to trigger him when he sees you.
Well, that's
because that's who he is, man.
But then that's on him, John.
Well, I know it is, but that's the whole thing. That's why when I'm like randomly run into him at a convention or something, and he sees me, it triggers him, and he's like, "Don't you fucking come near me!" You know,
no problem. I have no intention.
No, I'm just saying. You know,
that's not the problem. Yeah, I'm not going there.
No. So you know, he may be under. You know, because that'll be they're getting inducted in the Hall of Fame and all of that in the CAC rather. And of course, the Power Twins have already said they got your back in case of anything. They're with you. You got them with you.
And I appreciate
Marsh there with you.
But
I am not going. I'm bowing out.
But
I was flipping tire today, just in case you need me. I was flipping a tire.
But CAC is not a work, and you know we have civil penalties for things that can happen. So
that is true.
Everybody, just
chill out, man. Chill out.
So you got all this fame, well deserved. You got all these fans. Stay with them. You hate my guts? Yeah. I'm going to be way over there. Don't worry about me.
Right.
With me.
And I got Marsh.
Yeah, you and me. We're going to be hanging out. I'm going to help run your table.
There you go.
So I'm going for the experience, you know. Yeah. If I certainly hope I don't trigger him after all these years, you know. It's like, Jesus Christ.
You know, I was going back and forth, go, not go, go, not go. And then, you know, the final thing that ensured that I can't go. And I have a dear friend of mine, Mets fan, a guy I've known 20 years, military guy, you know, spent a lot of years as a colonel. And the Mets have this program at Citi Field called the Veteran of the Game. So every day they give a tribute to a veteran of the game. And so I was able to get my friend approved, and the Mets are going to honor him. It'll be August the 19th. Yeah. And that's right. That's the weekend of CAC, right? So I'm going to pay tribute to my buddy Steve Scaglione.
Well, that's wonderful. And congratulations to him.
Yeah, I'm happy. So anyway, I would love to be there. In a way, I didn't want to go because of, you know, all of that. And I'm like, and the only thing I regret is not being able to hang out with you and Marsh and the Twins and seeing some of the people I really adore who go there every year.
A dear friend of mine, Mike Peskin, pointed out that every year at CAC, there are fewer and fewer of the people. Like Mike always wanted to meet or speak with Nick Bockwinkel.
Yeah.
You know, and he's God rest his soul, he's no longer with us. And every year there's fewer and fewer of those guys. And I don't know who's going to be there, but
it's a loaded lineup, man.
Well, there's going to be somebody I want to see.
You will. You'll be seeing a lot of people you want to see there. It's going to be a wonderful experience for you.
And this might be my last opportunity to see these people, you know? So
every year we seem to lose people too. So I think that your decision to go is a great one. I think you're going to have a wonderful time. Marsh is very excited about hanging with you.
I'm looking forward to it, Marsh.
But anyway, I mean, what we're doing is like, this is like your debut on the show. This is finally your voice is being heard.
The voice of reason.
Yes, the voice of reason.
I mean, that was one of the reasons why I try to go whenever I can too, was John brought me out there one year and I got to meet Jerry Jarrett, and like 6 months later he passed, and I have this one picture of me and Jerry, and I told him about how much his whole thing with Andy Kaufman meant to me as a person, and now it still affects me and all that. And he was gracious and cool, and it's just really awesome.
How wonderful is that?
Yep.
Yeah, really good. But this is you. This is your debut as Broadway Sonny Blaze.
All right, here it is.
We were just joined incidentally.
Hey, Mumbles, take a walk.
we were just joined in the studio by Broadway Sonny Blaze, who also appeared on the big program the other night. And Sonny, come on over here for a second. We'd like to just talk to you for briefly. And you did win your match, and quite handily, I might add.
My first professional victory.
Your first professional victory in the ranks of professional wrestling, and you must feel pretty good about that.
Well, I'm still in shock. Excuse me. I was supposed to get a rematch with my first professional defeat, Lou Fabiano.
Right.
Booking error.
He was nowhere to be seen that night.
Through no fault of his own, really.
You sure it wasn't fear?
I don't think so. He would have been there. I was looking forward to reversing the decision and hopefully getting a victory against him. But as it turned out, I took on Mike Sundance, and I could have been a little more aggressive, I felt, but I was cautious, overcautious.
That's the modesty of a newcomer, I guess.
And the advice you gave me before the match helped a lot.
Well, who knows? Maybe someday we're down the line. We could work something out together, and I'll make you rise to success as well. The cream always rises to the top, and the Power Twins are on their way, and Broadway Sonny Blaze could be right back.
And we are the cream, John. Don't forget that.
I'm afraid to say anything else.
I certainly wouldn't mind having David standing behind me.
Well, I think,
Have him stand in front of me.
he's an ominous figure, to tell you the truth.
Stands in front of me, you wouldn't see me.
But Broadway also noticed that a lot of the young girls in there were kind of screaming for you, so that must make you feel pretty good.
Well, I'm accustomed to that completely.
Oh, okay.
That happens in malls, on the street, driving my car. Everywhere I go. That's nothing new.
Well, we're going to look forward to seeing you in some upcoming matches in the Long Island, New York area, and best of luck to you in your career, and congratulations on the victory the other night.
Well, thank you very much, and congratulations on your show.
Thank you very
really,
much,
it's an
Broadway.
excellent show.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
My pleasure.
That
I
was very
sounded
nice.
terrified.
It was your, it was like you were a virgin, and it was like,
Not with all those women chasing me.
oh, well,
That's right.
well, yeah, that's true too.
And Marsh, just so you know, sitting in the studio was my girlfriend at the time, Cindy, who later became my wife. And we were married, and now I'm in my second marriage. But John, do you remember Cindy?
Of course I do.
She
Used to
was
go to the diner after every show.
Yep. And she was so supportive,
Yeah.
And, so saying stuff like that really didn't make me feel very comfortable. But it was like, I don't know, you'd sort of just had to say something.
It was a work.
Yes.
I just imagine you saying that and looking over like,
That's kind of how it was afterwards. I had to say that.
yeah. She's like, what was that about? Like, oh, that's the business.
I never saw her give you the stink eye ever.
No,
She
she
was
never
very
did.
supportive. She was a wonderful girl. Yeah.
She really was.
Yeah.
And I assume still is. I haven't spoken to her in several years, but
Me neither.
there's there's no heat. It's just one of those things.
I have a feeling we're gonna have fun with this thing as we progress in these weeks ahead.
I think so. I'm having fun. And,
Yeah, that's what life's about, man. It's supposed to be about fun.
and before I forget, John, please, your friend who's a colonel, thank him for his service from me.
I will.
I appreciate it.
Steve Scaglione, man. Interesting cat. Great guy.
What I like here too is that you were teasing that John might become one of your managers.
And it happened.
It did. I wrestled Taz, and John was in the corner. And of the two of us, he's the one that gets injured. My manager.
You had won more matches than John at that point.
I was trying to be a big shot, take a bump.
But by that time,
pounds.
by the way, it was like the third time I worked with Pete.
Oh,
And here's what I knew. First of all, once Pete gets his hips under you, you give him the boost because you're going anyway.
you're going anyway, yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's a ridiculously legitimate shooting guy.
Absolutely.
And so by giving him the boost, it makes it easier for him to control you. He doesn't have to snap everything.
Okay.
So you give him a boost and he'll put you down like a baby. You give a moment's the old saying, hesitation breaks necks. You're in there with Crush. He was Kid Crush and the Tasmaniac. But I worked with him so many times, and it was easy. It was what they call a night off, really. He'd sell, he'd give, take, and
yep.
By the way, I never went over Taz, and I shouldn't have, frankly. The guy was in ridiculously good shape. And my second match was with his cousin Joe, who was much smaller than him. He wrestled as Mako, and he was out of Johnny Rod's school. And I believe he was a judo champion of some kind. Or he was a wrestling champion, and Taz was the judo champion. But again, just a shooter, remarkable. And again, he gets his hips onto you. Just go, give it all. But everybody from Johnny Rods' school, man, if you heard that they were trained by Johnny Rods, you knew they knew what they were doing.
Right.
And also, don't be a wise guy, because they're also trained to handle themselves pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm still in touch with a dear friend. We've stayed friends for all these years. Do you remember Vito LaGrasso?
Yeah, of course.
I talk with him often. He lives over in Orlando with his wife. She wrestled, and he's a super nice guy. He had I think he had a good career, really.
He had a good run.
Yeah. And,
Russo liked him a lot, too. Russo was very close with him, and Russo used him at WCW, and Russo helped get him in.
Oh.
They were pretty tight.
Oh, okay. Well,
Vinny Roo, yeah.
I know who Vinny Russo
Bro.
is. I know who he is. I don't know him. But Vito...
Come on, bro. You know Vinny, bro. Don't you, bro?
Oh, yes. I've heard him do that, bro. But Vito speaks highly of him.
I taught him, bro,
You taught him, bro?
No.
Don't ever teach him, bro, again. But, when I saw the match where Vito went over Terry Funk for the Hardcore Championship, that's a career in itself.
Yeah, it is. That's a big deal.
And then for Terry Funk to hand him the belt and shake his hand, that wasn't a message to the fans. That was a message to all of us.
Yep.
That Terry Funk is saying, this man is in the league now.
Yep.
That was a message.
Part of the club.
That's right. That was Terry Funk saying, you're in. And that's, I know the fans think that it was a message to them, but no, that was a message to the rest of us.
Yeah. All right, Marsh, what do we got next? Anything?
We got the last clip. Sonny Blaze had a question for the Twins.
Uh-oh.
I do believe that what I did before is Donnie Liable gave his independent report, and so I just wanted to close it out with the most quintessential pro wrestling spotlight clip imaginable. It's got Donnie Liable giving a report, Sonny Blaze asking the Power Twins the question, and then the outro of the oncoming show is particularly notable as you listen to these old tapes.
Yeah.
We're going to be taking another call at 661-1440 to Pro Wrestling Spotlight. You're on the air.
Yeah, my question is one of the Power Twins. If you guys are so bad, how come you only lasted a week in Calgary?
What was that question, moron?
How he wanted to know how you only lasted a week in Calgary.
No, we weren't up there for a week. We were up there for 6 months. So you think you know what's going on, you think you're watching the game, you really don't know what's going on, and I really don't have time to talk to morons like you.
He slammed the receiver down. Like I said, when you talk to one of the Power Twins, you got to be, you got to expect answers like that, especially if you irritate them. If you irritate them,
Listen, John, you know me long enough now, a few weeks now. I just want my respect. I don't want to be asking any dumb questions. I want people wasting my time with idiotic questions. I want them to come, know what they're going to ask, and ask it in a nice, polite manner. Right, John?
You're exactly right. Now, if someone wants to go out there and argue with David from the Power Twins, the best of luck to you, because he ain't going to last more than a few seconds in an argument with this guy. And that's one thing. We do want respect in the ring, and as their manager, and hopefully for a long relationship, we're going to command respect.
Command is the word, John.
And we're going to go after many titles in the future.
John, that show Friday night was just the beginning of a beautiful relationship between you and my brother and myself, and we're going to go rise to the top like you said before.
Let's see if we can get back to that independent report with Don Liable.
John, the South is where the independents are making a lot of noise this week. Is Memphis, Tennessee big enough to support two wrestling promotions? The established Continental Wrestling Association and King Jerry Lawler now have to contend with the newly formed Central All-Star Championship Wrestling Organization. Based in Memphis and already having their matches shown on Memphis Cablevision Channel 21, this group has expanded its promotional territory into Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Two familiar names campaigning with the CASW troupe are Showboat Sonny King and Bruiser Bob Sweetan. Many of the youngsters seeing mat action with this group were trained by the legendary Sputnik Monroe.
Some of the regulars in the CASW lineups are Van Horn, John Paul, who was formerly with the AWA as one of the top guns, former Mid-South television champion The Snowman, and his manager Kenny D. The Southland Express's Mike Murphy and Buddy Marshall are the odds-on favorite to come out on top in the tag team tournament, being formed to determine the first ever CASW champions. From Memphis, we go to Jackson, Mississippi, where Gulf Coast Championship Wrestling operates from the confines of the Jackson Sports Arena every Friday and Saturday nights. Matchmaker Rex Luthor has been taking his promotion to the grassroots level in that the majority of the talent he uses on his programs are students who have graduated from the GCCW Training Center. Known from Texas to Virginia and all points south, menacing manager Christopher Love is the person the fans come to give their peace of mind to. Also, Rocky Stone, Prince Cortez of Honolulu, Hawaii, and Lubbock, Texas's 270-pound Black Jack Daniels are the top heavyweights with this group. Professor Pomeroy and Boston's Ricky London are the GCCW Tag Team titleists. Reporting for Pro Wrestling Spotlight, I'm Superstar Wrestling reporter columnist Don Leibel.
Thank you very much, Don, and we'll get to Donnie's reports on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, and he extensively covers the independent scene where there's a lot of action happening throughout the United States. Now, before we go, I understand that Broadway Sonny Blaze has a question for David of the Power Twins.
David,
at your own risk.
While you and your brother were out in the ring victimizing Preston Steele and the Cheetah Kid, there was a rumor that a lot of the promoters in the country are protecting their people by not signing you. Do you think there's any truth to this?
Sonny, that was a very good question. I'm surprised it actually came from your mouth. I guess you must have practiced all week just to ask the question. But yes, there is truth to what you just said. A lot of promoters are afraid. They see these two huge, tremendously gifted athletes like me and my brother, and they're just afraid to put their local guys in with us. They know they're going to get hurt. So I want to keep practicing, keep asking questions like that. So practice up a couple more weeks and ask another question. Back to you, John.
Thank you very much, David. That's going to about wrap it up. We had a full 2 hours here. First of all, I'd like to thank my guests in the studio, Gary Cappetta, Monty Pereira, Wimp, my producers, Robin Bruce, David from the Power Twins, and Broadway Sonny Blaze. Until next week with the NWA pay-per-view special, this is Mr. Wrestling John Anthony saying goodbye.
.1440 WNYG Babylon, your community-minded station.
This is your Senior Citizens Report. My name, as you might know, is Saul Hornstein. I'm supposed to be the host of this show. Today we have the pleasure of having with us Dr. Robert Marcus, Massapequa. He's the chairman of the Public Relations Committee of the Arthritis Foundation, which is located where, Doctor?
It's in Melville on Route 110.
Welcome to the show. We're glad to have you here.
I could use that, Doctor, about now. Hey, John, I can't remember. Did I come up with that question for them, or did you give that to me?
I think you wrote it in the studio. You wrote it out.
I thought it was a pretty good way of setting it up, you know?
Yeah, it was good.
Of course, you know, they smashed it down my face.
There'll be a lot more of that in the coming weeks.
I know. And I loved every minute.
As they got more comfortable in the studio, because they were a little shy these first few weeks.
Yeah, they got to come out of their shell.
They got to come out of their shell a little bit, yeah. And unfortunately, we're going to have to be witness of it here every week.
I loved every minute. I really did.
Yeah, it was fun.
Even with the Twins, I loved every minute of it. I don't know why. I never felt like they were going to reach out and slap slap me around or anything. Yeah. They could have.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it was, you know, it was just kind of, this is like, I love this a lot because of the reminiscing and just reliving it, you know, and the fact that I still have my faculties for the most part.
Yeah. Oh, and for the listeners who don't know, the Power Twins were trained for professional wrestling by Dr. D. David Schultz.
They know.
Yeah. Oh, they do know? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So we had David on like 2 episodes ago.
Okay, you make it through his boot camp.
Yeah. You're going to be tough.
You're not a powder puff.
Toughened up. Yeah, and they spent time in Calgary with Stu Hart, so yeah they were trained.
They were very
and they were tortured.
Fighters.
They were tortured. Yeah. All right, man. Well, listen, this has been fun. Marsh, anything else you got before we wrap it?
No, that's it. I had a really good time with it, and I was really happy to get the story on how Broadway Sonny Blaze came to be, because
I
loved that there was every week I'm all like, wait, he's sitting right there. Do you remember? You met through Mark Tendler, I think, right?
That's correct. Mark. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And I was introduced to from Mark, I believe, from Marty Pereira. So that's all.
Did you guys just click?
With who?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Oh, me and Broadway?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You guys just click. We're fast friends, and he's all like, I'm doing a radio show, and he's like, I
pretty
can
quickly. Yeah.
I think John saw that. I don't want to say I was naive, but something along those lines, right, John?
You were just like you are today. You have a great heart.
Thank you.
You're a respectful guy. Always have been. Was very polite. You never had an attitude about anything. You were just kind of a genuine, salt to the earth guy who 35 years later, I still adore as the time we were spending time together back 35 years ago. So it was an easy thing because you had no agenda.
No, I don't remember. But
you didn't have an agenda. You were trying to break into the business. This was an opportunity to hang out. I was flying by the seat of my pants every week. I didn't know what was going on. I was just trying to make a living, and I'm dealing with all this stuff. I knew the wrestling business, but I wasn't I wasn't part of the boys. I was never really been part of the boys. But it was kind of me being in, learning by doing it, and then evolving this whole journey from radio, kayfabe, shoot, breaking stories, conventions, all this shit. It was a learning process. It was a 5-year PhD in the wrestling business for me.
And I'm so glad we've reconnected after all these years. I really am.
Well, that's why when it's genuine, when it's genuine, it's seamless. It's like no time has passed.
And that's how it feels.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, I look older. You look great. Marsh, not so much.
Yeah, I don't know. I think me, just getting to see Gary and seeing other people that have come on the show, and I'm like, I'm a fucking lucky son of a bitch right now. I'm probably one of those guys who's gonna go like that. But I'm kind of like, I don't feel my age, and I'm like, and I look at people, and I'm like, my God, I mean, how old? Everyone's in the same demographic. But I don't know. Maybe maybe it's because I never got married. Maybe it's because I don't have any kids.
Well, John,
maybe because I still think that I'm a kid in my own life, in my mind. I think I'm fucking 18 years old still.
But isn't your brain, other than wisdom, because if you think the same at 60 you did at 30, you wasted 30 years.
Oh, no, there's totally no. I've learned so much from my mistakes and all I made a ton of mistakes over the course of these 5 years. I hated who I became in 96. In 96, I was like, I hate myself. I don't like me.
Really?
Got to get out.
But I recently had a customer of mine, and it was flattering, and I understood that. She said, you don't look 60. So after she left, I asked one of my guys, I said, can somebody tell me what 60 looks like? What does 50 look like? What does 70 look like?
It's different for everybody.
Yeah. So, I understand what people say when they mean that. They're being kind. They're saying, oh, you look younger. I would have thought you were 55. Yeah. I don't think it's that big a deal between 55 and 60, but thank you.
Yeah. It's just a lower number.
Yeah. But,
not by much.
Other than experience and hopefully a little wisdom, and I don't mean to get all holy roller or anything like that, but every day I pray to God that I'm a little kinder and a little more charitable to other people's opinion.
Yeah.
That's part of my prayer every day.
Yeah.
But I still do feel like my brain is a 25-year-old brain.
Keep it that way.
But I still marvel at things. I'm excited when these young guys are doing today. One of my guys turns 27, and we had I brought to the shop a little cake. We had a little thing, and that's why I keep looking at my phone. He's texting me pictures and all of this, and I'm so happy for these young guys. But I don't try to be a 30-year-old. I'm 60. But now I get to live through them being 30.
It's not, some people cover their age or try to, you just don't. I'm 67, you're 60, Marsh just turned 40. It's like you have to be who you are at the age that you are, and you learn from every year that you're on this earth, and you have to, because if not, then it's kind of a waste. If you don't get wisdom over the years, and if you don't learn by your mistakes, and you're doomed to repeat them. But yeah, it's just kind of like, I'm very comfortable, and I think you are as well, in the age that you are. I'm very comfortable where I am at this stage of my life, even though it's, it's like that, you could see the sunset down the road whenever that may be. So you just try to live every day as the fullest you can.
Yeah.
And so that's why we do the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, because it jolts you back into youth.
Hearing Donnie Liable and the LNS comics, and
yeah, it's gonna be a fun ride. That's why I'm glad I'm doing it again. But as I told Marsh last week and the week before, I ain't fucking doing it after this run is over with. This is the last. That's it. All right, let's wrap it up. The Mets are in the 6th inning. I want to see the end of the game.
All right, guys, thank you.
I got to take my trash out before the trash fairies come to pick it up, because they don't come again until Sunday. So I got lots of things to do. Gentlemen, Marsh, tell us where they could find you. Sonny, it's good to see you. We'll see you again in probably a couple of weeks.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, John.
Yeah.
Marsh, thank you. It's nice to see you again. I look forward to CAC.
All right.
It's going to be a good time, you and me. And then, John, I think at this point, everyone knows where I'm at. Marsh Ref Marsh, all over and behind the scenes. Yeah, you can find me at any of those places. But
yeah,
go ahead and wrap this up, John. You got Mets to get to.
That's right. Thank you, Marsh. Appreciate it very much. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap up this edition of Pro Wrestling Spotlight Rewind. I want to remind you all to go to our Patreon to give this show support, because God knows we need it. Seriously, $5 a month gets you in the door. So just go there. Pro Wrestling Spotlight. I don't even know what the fuck I'm saying. I'm burnt out now. Join our private group at facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can see all of this, all of these great shows there. It's youtube.com/Pro Wrestling Spotlight. On Twitter at John Arezzi, Instagram at John Arezzi as well. And I want to thank Marsh, our producer, creative director, co-host of these new Rewind shows, our co-host. I want to thank Gary Cappetta for coming on. Of course, Broadway Sonny Blaze, my dear friend, for coming on. Thanks to Patreon executive producer Joe Holloway, and for every patron out there for your support, helping with the production costs for this program. Until next time, when we relive more history with you, this is John Arezzi for Pro Wrestling Spotlight Rewind.
Well, fans, that's all the time we have this week. I'm John Arezzi. See you next time, everybody.